around this week here in southern Arizona was the beginning of tarantula season. Did anyone hear this? Well, if you're a tarantula, every season's tarantula season, right? So for us, we consider it tarantula season because it's the time of year that we observe them. And the reason that we observe them is because it's tarantula mating season. And so I thought this is a perfect time to talk about relationships. But I want to be clear, this is a message and a talk for everyone. Because as Roger so beautifully pointed out to us, relationships are life, right? Every single one of us is in relationship with someone, with something. And we just wrapped up a series called Ethos, where we were talking about values that have transformative power for us and for our lives. And every single one of those values had a component that related to how we connect with other people, how this relates to our relationships. So just one of the lenses of relationship is that of partnerships, right? Of intimate partnerships, of coupling. And it can be one of the dimensions of life that can both be the most challenging and the most rewarding. You know, I've personally tried doing a lot of work on myself, different therapy, spiritual practices, retreats, all these different things. And honestly, it all pales into comparison for the amount of work that I've had to do on myself being in a relationship. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So I invited my partner, my most intimate relationship, Olivia, to help me share about this dynamic. And one thing I want to acknowledge is we're both in our early 30s, and there are probably a decent amount of you that have been in a partnership longer than either Olivia or I have been alive. I acknowledge this, right? But the reality is that every single one of us has unique wisdom that we bring to the conversation of life, right? So as we just share what we've experienced in our lives and from our perspectives, I encourage you to think about your wisdom, your story. You know, we're going to be sharing about our failures, right? Not just the things we've learned, but the things we've unlearned along the way. We've been together for 7 years, and I often joke that, you know, this is a true fact that the human body every 7 years has recycled every last one of its cells. Do you know this? That our cells are constantly dying and being reborn, and they say roughly every 7 years, your entire body, down to the last cell, is different than it was 7 years ago. And so we often joke we've spent about one cell cycle together. Some of you have spent multiple cell cycles with your partner. But our cells are not the only thing that we've recycled along the way. We've also recycled stories about how life was supposed to be, about how relationships are supposed to look. And so the way we want to talk about today is the myths that we have all been led to believe about life and about relationship. You know what I'm talking about? These myths, right? I grew up with a couple of myths that I had to unlearn, things that I found out were not true, that were just told to me to accomplish a specific purpose. For example, when I was a kid, I was told by my parents that I could not leave the light on in the car for very long or else the police were going to pull us over. Do you remember this? As an adult, I've come to a reason that I don't think there is a law that says you cannot have the light on in your car unless, why would they put that in there, okay? Another myth, that if you know, it's summertime, we're eating a lot of watermelon. I was told as a kid that if you eat the black seeds in a watermelon, that a watermelon's going to grow in your stomach and burst out, right? And so I avoided the black watermelon seeds, you know, fervently. And I just ate one yesterday, and I feel fine, so.
So far.
Yeah. We'll see. If I run off stage in an emergency, you know why. But we're all given these myths from religion, society, even our entertainment industry leads us to believe certain things about life and about relationship. And what I've found about spirituality and the spiritual life is that it's not just about adding truth, but it's also about subtracting that which is untrue. Clearing and understanding that which is an illusion, that which is a myth, and that allows us to find our way to further truth.
Yeah, I think the unlearning step is sort of it's the first on that journey, and it's the most important. You have to make space first before you can add more into your life or into who you are. And for me, it was the hardest because you're peeling back all of your safety mechanisms and the structures within your life that you have created to make you feel safe. And to grow beyond that, you have to unlearn a lot of those things first, and it requires tons of bravery. It can be very disorienting and painful, but it's worth it.
I don't know how many of you remember, there was a TV show maybe about 15 years ago called Mythbusters. Anyone remember this show? Each week, this group of experts would take a myth or an urban legend, and they would test it and see if it was true. And so today, I invited Olivia here to be a mythbuster with me as we go on this journey of myth-busting relationship myths. Are you with me? Are we good on this journey? All right. We're going to start with one that I think we all know and maybe have internalized.
You complete me.
That's it. That's the myth. This is a relationship myth that I think all of us have internalized in one way or another. I know I grew up with it, particularly growing up in religion. I was taught that, I was an incomplete person until I found my other half. We use language like that, my other half. But there's an implication there that we are not whole, and we cannot be whole unless we find that other half. And so whether you are single today or you're in a relationship, I think this myth affects us regardless. If you're single, we're led to believe on some level that you're incomplete until you have a partner. And if you are in a relationship, it places an incredible burden on your partner to complete you. I love this quote from author Elizabeth Gilbert. She says, it's coming. It is not the responsibility of your partner to make you happy. That is your job. And until you accept that, you will never be truly happy in a relationship. And we can just even widen this to complete. It's not your partner's job to complete you. It's your job to complete you. And you're never going to feel complete until you understand that.
Yeah, I think I so wanted this to be true my whole life. Especially being a female in the rom-com era and, and also growing up in conservative evangelical Christian church, finding your husband, finding the person who's going to take care of you for the rest of your life was just so romanticized. And, we started dating when I was, I guess the math would say 23. And at 23, I'm like, who's going to complete me? Where are you? And I think something that I had to really work through was I realized that I was outsourcing my purpose to you. And you're someone who is so ambitious, and you've seen and known your purpose for a really long time, and since you were young. And I saw that in you, and I was like, I don't have a purpose. He has a purpose. Like, let me get on that train. And it's taken me to some really cool places, but there is no replacement for your own purpose and your own passion. And, when we came to Aldea, I had also come from a community where you're the pastor's wife, and you're supposed to do all of these things. You're supposed to be in that equally with him. And I really wanted to jump all the way in, and I kind of lost myself in that, and I lost what my purpose was apart from what he's doing here. And over the last year, I would say, I think I've really, I kind of hit my limit with that and realized I really needed to start looking within. And I've started baking bread, as some of you could see out in the lobby. I started my own business, and I'm baking bread now, and I am writing personal essays and poetry on Substack, and it's given me some of my own purpose and passion back, and I think I can feel a sense of aliveness in that. And I would just say there's no replacement for your own purpose.
Mm-hmm. You can support another person. You can encourage them. You can appreciate them for all they're bringing. But if you're finding your entire purpose in someone else, then you're not being enabled to shine and to become the unique person that you are, right? And so when we become dependent on another for that, right, for identity, and this can happen regardless of if you're in a coupled relationship or not. There's this great quote from Swiss philosopher Alain de Botton who says that the romantic view is that our partners are here to make us whole. The wiser view is that they are here to help us become ourselves. So we can free other people from being everything so that we actually enable them to witness us in our fullness. And this does not require sameness. In fact, sameness in many ways can get in the way because in many ways, we appreciate another when we're not the same, when we're different, when there's some difference to be aware of and to appreciate. Our spiritual paths, they look different. You know, I'm more of a head person. She's much more of a heart person, and we help each other, but we do not show up the same. You know, I'm like, Olivia, do you know this thing about quantum physics and how it's the key to everything? And she's like, no. And then she's like, hey, have you felt any emotions in your body lately? And I'm like, no. So we need each other. We're on the same page when it comes to values, and I think, of course, that is central, but how we move through the world is unique to us. And when we expect the other person to be everything for us, or we expect the other person to be the same as us, not only is it unrealistic, but it limits us from going out and having the drive to create our own lives, as Olivia just described. So myth busted, right? They are not there to complete us, but they can be a part of this thing that I would like to call that which catalyzes you. They don't complete you, but they catalyze you, meaning they can launch you into different parts of your life and new stages of growth. But of course, that invites change, and that can feel threatening, which brings us to our second myth, which is change is a threat. How many of you have ever caught yourself saying something like, "You're not who I married," or "You're not who I signed up to be with"? Now, of course not, right? Because we as human beings are dynamic. We're always changing. And embedded in that word relationship is the word relate, right? And we continue to relate to another human being as they change, as they evolve, as they grow. And often, it can be the relationship itself that is the source of change. Carl Jung, I love how he puts it, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed.
Yeah, I love that quote. In the beginning of our relationship, I think the change felt like such a big threat to me. And, you know, like you were kind of saying, I would say we sort of fall under the opposites attract. And in that, you know, you're more of the dreamer and I'm more of the structured, rooted in my routine. And I think it was really scary because you would say things like, hey, maybe we should move, you know, and I'm like, what? Like, why? We have a place here. Like, my family's here. I have friends here. And you had already moved to Washington from California. And so you had seen the beauty that can come from a big change like that. And I hadn't seen that yet. And I think as we grew in our relationship and the safety of our relationship, I felt comfortable enough and safe enough to go outside my comfort zone, make a move all the way down to the desert from the Pacific Northwest. And it just, in those decisions, I started to see the fruit of getting outside my comfort zone. And I think, you know, it has a lot to do with the safety I feel in this relationship and going out into the unknown. And it's made me understand your view of the world better. And it's a beautiful view.
we often think about these things in terms of compromise, and we put a negative skew on compromise, right? Like we say, oh, well, if you want to be in a relationship, you got to compromise. But what if compromise also leads us to better outcomes than we would have sought on our own? There are many ways that being in a relationship has invited me to change in ways that I would not have been willing to.
Many ways.
Many
yes.
ways that I would not, yeah. But ways that I'm so glad I did, right? So compromise can be a gift, right? And as she describes, meeting each other in the middle. You may have heard this allegory, but there's this kind of metaphor of the kite and the string. That in some relationships, one person is the kite, the other is the string. I think it's pretty clear based on how she kind of shared who's who. I'm more of the kite, flying high and dreaming, and she's more the string, grounding and centering. And the reality is that the kite without the string flies off into the sun, right, and just goes who knows where. And the string without the kite stays on the ground. And obviously this is an oversimplification, but it just is a reminder that two personalities coming together transform each other in such a way that they become greater than the sum of their parts, right? And so there are ways that I've been invited to transform that I never would have even imagined, that I'm so grateful for. I have drawers with labels on them. I would have never.
That's for me, so that you put the stuff away in the right location.
But I'm grateful. She's really helped me think about self-care, being grounded in the present moment in ways that I just really wouldn't have. Honestly, I think that in many ways, I wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for our relationship. I would probably be like, I don't know, in the Amazon or I don't know. Like we were joking about this, like where would I be? I'd be in space or something. I don't know. But she has kept me grounded.
I think you'd be on the side of the road going like this. Like, give me a ride somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. But I have labels on my drawers now, so it's good. There's a freedom that you experience when you're free to be yourself and you're free to change, right? And you know that you're being invited to be more than what you are, but you also recognize that you're loved for who you are. And part of that means that we're always being reintroduced to a partner. We're always being reintroduced to this person as someone new, right? Who are you today? Am I willing to meet that person every single day as someone different? Because we are all evolving. Or as Esther Perel, the kind of predominant voice on couples work these days, Esther Perel, she says, it's great. Most people are going to have 2 or 3 relationships or marriages in their lifetime. Some of us are going to do it with the same person.
Yeah, we've definitely already had one. So I think we're on to the second.
That's what it feels like to have a thing that you intend as a joke not work as well. That's how it feels. Now you know. Now you know what it feels like. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so nice of you.
I had someone tell me, actually, no. I had someone tell me the other day that it was that it's not funny, but that they were actually really listening, thinking I was being serious, and they were saying it's a compliment. Like, I'm really just listening to what you have to say, and then I mean it as a joke, and then it kind of. So that was what I think was happening there.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on. Where were you?
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about Esther Perel. Most people are going to have 2 or 3 relationships or marriages in their lifetime. Some of us are going to do it with the same person.
The right relationship won't have conflict. That's where we are.
Oh.
Yeah. But you were saying, okay.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
No, we're not there yet.
Oh, really? We're on the third one.
No.
Change.
It's okay.
Well, I don't have anything else to say. So
all right.
let's move on.
Much like our relationship. Sometimes we just run out of the words,
Yeah.
The myth, though, is that we arrive, right? That we arrive at some state where change ends, right? And really what it does is we can get afraid at times because we look down the road and we realize, oh, man, we're going to constantly be changing, constantly evolving. And really this feeling that we want is like, won't we ever get to a point where the change stops and things are stable? But the reality is we're always evolving. And, I remember there was a time when we were first starting to date, and I was still very much in a spiritual evolution, working through kind of my religious upbringing, a time of deconstruction of the beliefs that I had been handed. And I was struggling to find ways to talk to her about it. I wanted to really bring her in on this journey, but I didn't know how. So I took her to an event which had a couple of speakers, and they were basically talking about how to practice a spirituality beyond the framework of religion and God that we had grown up with. Pretty standard fare as far as what we do here now, but at the time, it was far out of her comfort zone. It was something I was still exploring. And so I took her to this event, and it really rocked her to her core. It really shell-shocked her, and I'm so grateful that we chose to stay connected through that change, because I know how, abrupt that was for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was not expecting that moment, and it was really a moment in time that changed everything. It was like coming outside of the structure, right? The structure of, in my case, my religion. And at that time, my religion was something that was the core foundation of my being. And, I think we've learned better ways to now talk to each other about big things, rather than like taking me to an event to understand where he was at spiritually. That was hard. I remember feeling really disoriented the next day, and I didn't go to work, and I remember I can still see it. Like, I was looking out the window of my apartment, and I was just like, where the hell am I? Like, am I on this earth? Am I, like, what is, like, just so swirly, and it was really scary. But that was just the way that it had to happen for me. Kind of rip the Band-Aid. And
did you tell your work where you're like, I need an existential crisis day?
Yeah. There, that was yours.
Yeah. There we go. All this change naturally is going to create some level of conflict, right? It's not always going to be easy, right? To be reintroduced to a new person and to be kind of constantly in step evolving with one another, you're not always going to be on the same page. So there's going to be conflict. This brings us to our third myth, which is a good relationship is conflict-free. Now, a lot of you, I hear that. I hear that laugh. A lot of you are like, duh, right? Of course, a good relationship is not conflict-free. But I do believe that we've internalized this myth on some level, because I believe that whether we realize it or not, subconsciously, we treat conflict as the problem. That we often think that the more conflict we experience with someone, it's somehow an indicator that they are not right for us. A Swiss philosopher, Alain de Botton, who I referenced before, he kind of shares about this. He says, the success of a relationship is not measured by how few arguments you have, but by how gracefully you navigate the ones that inevitably arise. Sometimes, you'll hear couples and they'll be like, I don't know, there's something just magical about us. We've just never been in an argument. And I'm like, that'll never be something that we get to say about us,
No.
We recently we were having a conversation just the other day, and Olivia said to me,
this was yesterday.
It was yesterday,
right?
yeah. She said something
very recent.
She said something that's been very consistent in our relationship is that we never agree.
It's so funny. I think we both just have this thing in us that we want to disagree with the other person just because it's more, I don't know.
It's fun.
More fun.
It can be fun.
Like, no, that's not how it is.
That's not an official, we can't be quoted as saying that officially, right? But here's the reality. If you are in relationship with a living, dynamic human being, that person is going to trigger you. And the reality is you may have picked someone who is especially going to trigger the things that need to be woken up inside of you. When Olivia and I first started dating, I remember talking to my therapist at the time, and I said, it's interesting that I've chosen someone who seems to trigger a lot of my, sensitivities, right? And he said, yeah, the subconscious is very sneaky, and it will do whatever it can to get its healing. And that's really stuck with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the key is, friends, something that I really think is so important for us to realize is that we think what we're seeking in a relationship is ease. We think what we're seeking is a lack of conflict. We think on some level that what we're seeking is perfection, but that is not what we're seeking. What we are seeking from a relationship is connection, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think I hid from conflict for a while in the beginning. And especially like talking about the rom-com era and also social media, like everything's perfect and we're only showing all of the most amazing highlighted moments of our life, and it can start to feel like, what's wrong with me, like, or why, like, they don't look like they're fighting, or they don't look like they're having these arguments, and you start to kind of play that comparison game. And I feel like I hid from that in the beginning, partially too, because as a kid, when I would see my parents arguing, like, I was afraid. When I would see that happening, it was like, what does this mean? What does it mean for my safety? What does it mean for our family? What does it mean for our future? And I think that I hear a phone and it's totally like taking me away. Sorry. You're a lot better at that than me. I'm not really used to this.
This is like take your partner to work day, because she's getting to see the different experiences that I go through.
Yeah. Hey, I would not choose this job. I'm just here because I love you, and okay. I'll do it every once in a while. The speaking part of it. Yeah. Okay, what was I saying? I hid from conflict in the beginning, and I think because I was making so much meaning of it. It was like what does this mean you disagree with me? What does that mean for us? Yeah. What does this mean if you don't like how I said that? Or what does this mean if I don't like how you said that? And I think that through my own therapy, through our therapy together, I've realized that it's not, again, that quote, it's like, it's not about the conflict that's happening. It's how you navigate it and how you move through it. And it's definitely taken time for my nervous system to get used to that. And I still have moments where I'm like, we're fighting. Does that mean you still love me at all? And that's just my own wounding. And
these myths, we are working through these in real time, just to be clear.
Yes.
But something that we've been learning is that connection, right? This is an important word here, connection. It's not about solving the problem. This is the thing that I think we get wrong a lot. We think that we need to solve the issue at hand in order to feel connected. It's actually the other way around. That in many ways, reconnecting to the person provides you tools, space, resources to solve. But connecting is about understanding. So often in life we get in arguments, and this doesn't have to be in a intimate relationship. It could be anywhere, right? We get in arguments, and it's really like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong, and essentially trying to convince the other person why you're right and they're wrong. Beneath all of that are two human beings who desire to be understood for how they are feeling in a moment. There's a lot going on. There's stuff going on in the body, in the mind, in the perception. And it's important to get beneath the thing that's presenting itself on the surface. So here's some language that's been helpful for us, right? Instead of like, well, no, this is what happened. You could say something like, I see you're afraid right now. Would you tell me about that fear? Right? I see that you're angry. Where is that? Where do you feel that? What is that about? Because curiosity is our greatest ally in these moments, right? When your partner realizes you're curious about what they're feeling, it's disarming. This is, of course, really hard because you're feeling triggered, right? You're feeling difficulty, so it's hard to feel curious in those moments. But the reality about connection is that the gateway, which is being curious and wanting to understand what the other person is feeling, it can only happen one person at a time, because only one person can share and another person can listen one at a time. It's just basic physics, right? So it's important to be patient, to realize that, hey, someone's got to go. Someone's got to take that first step. A lot of what we're talking about comes from emotionally focused therapy, which was in many ways created by an author, a therapist named Sue Johnson. And it's a really powerful way of understanding connection that she brings forth. And this is something that she writes about this very topic. It's not about solving the problem. It's about being present with each other in the midst of it. You don't need to fix your partner's feelings. Underline that one.
Although you will want to.
You'll want to, right?
Yeah.
You need to show them that they're not alone in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, putting this into practice has been incredibly difficult, because you are in the moment feeling your own stuff. You're feeling triggered and you're feeling hurt, and it's it's definitely not something that we would have been able to come to on our own, like through our therapy and just having people who love us and that we can learn from. I think we've grown in that, and it takes so much practice. It's honestly sets and reps. It's getting the practice of talking in that way and working through that style of communication. It's just like can be mind bending sometimes. Like, wait, I'm trying to prove my point. Oh, that's not working. Like, I'm supposed to connect with you first. How am I supposed to connect with you if I'm pissed at you? It's like it takes a lot of like honestly just checking in with the physical sensation too, like breathing. Oh, am I holding my breath? Like, am I making myself dizzy because I'm actually not breathing right now because I'm just like tense? And when your body can calm down and you can feel a sense of like safety in your body, then you can feel a sense of safety within the conversation and mentally and moving forward, having that connection and trying to get yourself there.
Yeah, and there's a gentleness we try to find for the other person, but also within ourselves. I think there's a recognition, you might choose this perspective, there's a recognition that even in the midst of conflict, within each of us, there is an inner child that wants to be heard, wants to be seen, wants to know that it's acceptable, that amidst the conflict, it wants to know it's okay. I remember seeing this image of an art installation at, you guessed it, Burning Man. But it's a beautiful sculpture that I think speaks to where we go in conflict, but what's really happening under the surface, right? Two people wanting to connect, even if the exterior, the story, right? The all these narratives tell us that we're separate, right? But inside there are two inner children, there are two hearts that want to connect. So what if we stop seeing conflict as the problem, and instead we realize that connection is an opportunity, right, to understand the other person, even if what you're understanding is their subjective experience that is different from yours. And this takes us to the final myth, and perhaps the most challenging, myth number 4, that there is one reality. And this, what we mean specifically is that in any given context, right, we tend to believe that there's the truth and then there's what you think happened, right? But in reality, there is always, well, you're the closest example I have. But the reality is that this is a myth, that there is one subjective reality.
I was going to say, I think we've ranked these in order of easiest to hardest.
Yeah.
Because, this one's a doozy.
Yeah, we have a hard time with this one. But how many of us get into arguments and you're like, well, that's not what happened. Like, I don't know what you're saying, but that's not what happened. But the hard truth that we just need to be comfortable with is that every individual has a subjective view of reality. And so where there are more than one people involved, more than one person involved in a situation, that there is going to be more than one reality of the situation, one perspective. Therapist and author Terry Real says that one of the most important skills in intimacy is learning to tolerate two different realities at the same time.
Yeah, that's really hard. Especially in the moment when your reality feels like the truth and your defenses are coming up, and again, it's like your body is in that fight or flight mode, fight, flight, or freeze. And sometimes, like recently, I've just been noticing in those moments, like I feel dizzy. And recently, my therapist was like, well, maybe you're not getting enough oxygen. Like, you need to be breathing deeper. Your breathing is so shallow because you're tight and you're tense. And, it's funny because this idea of one reality, like I believe it intellectually and I understand it, but sometimes still we're like, yeah, your reality is so valid, like, oh, okay. Like, I know that's what I'm supposed to say. I just need to like kind of get myself down that road into feeling into it and living it. And it's, you're not going to come to connection through trying to persuade the other person.
Yeah, I mean, that's somewhere I need to check myself because she often jokes with me. She says, you would have been good in another life. You would have been a great lawyer, right? Because in our arguments, I lawyer up, I'm like, here's evidence, file 1 through 6 of
Well, you're used to having an audience every Sunday that will sit and listen for you to speak for 30 full minutes. Like, hello, I am not that audience.
Somehow we've divided the room. We have Team Olivia. I don't know what happened here.
Oh, gosh.
It's okay. Yeah.
I got to knock him down a few levels because, someone's got to.
Yeah. We often joke that we would like to set up cameras in our house just so when we get in an argument and one of us says, that's not what you said, we can roll the tape, you know. But something that I've needed to learn, I'm still learning and I'm still accepting, is that whenever there's any kind of conflict, she had a different experience of it than I had, period, end of story. So some of the language that's been helpful for us is things like, hey, when you said this is how I experienced it. When you said this, it landed on me right? Or so for example, it's like she says, you missed a spot on the countertops. And I could say, well, what I heard you say was, you're just like your father.
But I would say that's hard for both people, right? Because you're feeling that, I tried my best and you're still seeing something that I missed and I don't want to be the person that misses. And then I'm over here whoa, I just got gobsmacked with all your childhood trauma, and in that moment, I'm trying to speak my truth and you're speaking your truth and there's room for both. Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about empathy, and empathy comes into play here. And Brene Brown says, empathy is not connecting to an experience, it's connecting to the emotions that underpin the experience. That means we don't have to have the same story to feel with someone. This is so important, and this transcends partnerships, couple relationships. It's just in all relationships. Friends, our relationships, whatever they are, right? They're when two or more beings who are not the same, who are not identical, right, come together and want to relate to one another, which means there is always going to be a gap and a distance and a difference between understanding one another, which we see often as a problem, right? But this is a beautiful opportunity because anytime that we're invited to understand, we're invited to expand, right? To expand our own awareness. And it's through the understanding of another that we actually begin to understand ourselves more. So the encouragement today, if nothing else, is that may we see relationship in whatever form it takes in our lives as an opportunity to expand, as an opportunity to grow, and an opportunity to be transformed.
Yeah, and just remember, your soul is choosing someone that wants to heal you, that is going to press your buttons. And, I think this is true for a lot of different kinds of relationships, not just partners. And I think I honor that in me that, wants to be held by you. So.
Well, I am so glad that you chose to take this crazy journey, right? Look at where we are now, right?
Crazy.
It's been a wild ride, and thank you all for being a part of it, right? You've just we've been so loved on by this community and just embraced, right? And it's been a beautiful journey for us. So, would you give a round of applause for my lovely co-hosts? I had envisioned, doing this message on this couch. It's a little smaller than I think I had realized because there's a lot of things falling over and I'm, all this. But
I realize it's funny. We sat on the same sides that we sit on the couch at home. This is my side, that's your side. But on our couch, there's a lot of space in between because we're I'm over here, I'm comfortable, you're over there.